Welcome back to Landmarks Discovered. In this episode, we'll visit Maurice Fatio's enchanting design for 210 Via Del Mar. The street where this property is located was one of the first streets to be platted in the estate section of Palm Beach in 1928. And there's an interesting connection between the plat and the architect, Maurice Fatio, who designed 210. Henry Barkhausen was the president of the corporation that platted Via Del Mar and also commissioned Fatio to design his home in 1927 on Middle Road.
It's interesting that you bring that up because in the small world that is Palm Beach, Henry Barkhausen's son, also named Henry, married Wyeth's daughter, Alice.
And we know about this personal anecdote because a few years ago, you actually went up to Illinois to interview Alice and Henry Barkhausen.
It was a great experience to go up to Lake Forest and interview them about their connection to each other and to Wyeth and to Fatio. And it was really a special experience because at the time, Henry was 102.
And it's these personal anecdotes that really add to the significance of these properties. I like what you said earlier about they're no longer just a picture in a book. They're really brought to life by the stories of the people that have lived there.
And what's so special is because a lot of these properties are landmarked, we are able to witness that history in modern day. This property is not only noteworthy for the people that have lived in it, but also because it represents one of the first case studies of the tax abatement program. The tax abatement program in Palm Beach was passed in 1997, and the owner at the time was in the process of redoing 210 Via Del Mar and decided to embrace this program. And in the end, it saved him about $1.6 million in taxes.
And it's a wonderful benefit for property owners here in the town of Palm Beach. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about it being restrictive, but in reality, it only provides purview for the Landmarks Commission over interior spaces. And by interior spaces, I mean major rooms like living rooms and dining rooms. Spaces like kitchens, bedrooms, and bathrooms do not fall within the purview, and there's a lot of flexibility that's given. And I think anyone that buys these houses, those are generally the areas that they want to preserve.
And it's so great you bring up the public spaces because I think one of the impacts of the tax abatement program, specifically at 210 Via Del Mar, was that they brought the ceiling back. You know, in the 50s, it was air conditioned, so a drop ceiling was put in the main living room. And when they started to redo it, they tore it down and saw that it was like originally a beautiful vaulted ceiling.
Katie and I are really excited to do this episode of Landmarks Discovered because we get to introduce you to Marie. Marie is our director of archives, and really we couldn't do these episodes without her. She does intensive research on every property that we feature and adds so much to the episodes and really, I think, maximizes our ability to share our archives with the community.
Maurice Fatio was born in 1897 in Switzerland, and he later studied at the Zurich Polytechnic Institute under Karl Moser, who was an early proponent of Le Corbusier in Switzerland, which may have influenced some of Fatio's work later. And in 1920, his father felt that he needed to have an American experience, and so he relocated to New York, where he worked under Harry Lindbergh, who specialized in country house designs. And while he was in Lindbergh's office, he met William Traynor, who he later partnered with to establish his firm, Traynor and Fatio. In 1923, Fatio moved to Florida and decided to establish his practice in Palm Beach, where there was so much going on at the time. And he had the unique experience of being a European with all of his background and education in Palm Beach. So this was the first French Normandy style in Palm Beach, which was very significant at the time. So Maurice Fatio considered himself to be an eclectic architect, and he really wanted to design more modern buildings in America, but felt that many Americans weren't quite ready for it yet. This was his belief. And so an alternative to that was reinterpreting and bringing these great examples of European architecture to the States. And 210 Via Del Mar is a great example because it also evokes some of the houses that Traynor and Fatio designed that are in Connecticut and Long Island, some of these big country houses. And it may even have been partially inspired by his family home in Lake Geneva in Switzerland. 210 Via Del Mar has kind of an interesting fairy tale-like story to it. Not only does it look like a fairy tale house from the outside, but it was built for Eleanor Chase's mother, also with the same name, Eleanor Chase, by Maurice Fatio. So Eleanor's mother was widowed at the time, and she had 3 daughters. And she commissioned Fatio to design this house for her, and there's a rumor, or legend rather, that instead of payment, he asked the mother for Eleanor's hand in marriage. Because they were close friends for 5 years at this point. He was very much in love with her, but couldn't quite establish a relationship with her at that time. So the building permit was dated in July of 1928. And then they were married 1 year later in July of 1929. So further establishing this kind of fairy tale aspect of the story. And in the house, there is a tower with a room that was designed specifically for Eleanor, for her to write in. It's also helpful when I'm doing this research to find out more about the people who lived in the residence. So for 210 Via Del Mar, it was the architect's mother-in-law. And her family hails from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And the Oshkosh Public Museum is actually a house that Eleanor Sawyer's family lived in before it became a museum. And they have this great video that includes what appears to be Fatio and Eleanor sort of relaxing and frolicking on the beach in Palm Beach. So this is a really, really exciting thing to share and make part of our episode, because we can see the architect not just in his formal portraits, but someone who's having fun, and see them kind of like dancing, and we don't know what they're saying, but we can imagine. And also another different place where I found something interesting about Fatio was through the US Modernist website. And they have all of these digitized architectural magazines. And so there was an issue from the 1937 Architectural Forum that included Fatio, who was part of a jury. So again, just showing different parts and pieces of the architect. In some ways, archives are similar to historic preservation. They both adhere to guiding principles, whether it's organizational methods or the process for rehabilitating or restoring a house. And more importantly, archives, directly the architectural archives, inform the historical preservation process. So we have owners that we are able to help by showing them the original drawings. The Historical Society of Palm Beach County holds the Maurice Fatio Architectural Collection, and we worked closely with them to review the drawings of 210 Via Del Mar to study and inform the current owner about some of what was original and what had been added in later years. And one detail was the balcony on the west elevation, which we can see in the original drawing is not included. And in our collection at the Preservation Foundation, we have a number of photographs and drawings that were donated by Fatio's daughter, Alexandra Taylor Fatio. And so we have these photographs also aid in showing us, alongside the drawings, what the house looked like at the time. And these items and objects from the past are are so important to teach us about history. So whether it's a piece of paper, a letter, a drawing, or an actual physical structure, all of these things are important to maintain in their original state, or as close as their original state can be, so that we can understand history.
In featuring Marie in this episode, I think it's clear how fortunate we are here at the Preservation Foundation to have such a qualified archivist. So stay tuned for future episodes featuring Marie, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Landmarks Discovered.